Look around you, at the light above your head, the screen you're watching right now, the hum of your refrigerator in the next room. We take it for granted, this invisible river of energy we call electricity. But there is a story behind that light, a story we think we know, a story of a brilliant man named Thomas Edison and his greatest triumph, the incandescent light bulb. But what if that story is only half true? What if the invention that lit up the world also cast the longest, darkest shadow? This is not just a story of a light bulb. This is a story of a war for the very soul of the modern world. And it all started not with a flash of genius, but with a public execution. Her name was Topsy. She was a 10,000-pound Asian elephant, and on January 4th, 1903, she was led onto a stage on Coney Island. She had killed 3 men, they said. She was a rogue. And for her punishment, the owners of Luna Park had chosen a new, terrifying and highly public method. They fitted metal sandals onto her feet, attached to wires, and with a film crew rolling, they threw a switch. Topsy was killed by 6,600 volts of alternating current, a C. And the man who helped orchestrate this gruesome spectacle to prove a point about the deadly danger of his rival's system was none other than the hero of our story, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison's greatest invention. And to understand how we got here, to an elephant's public execution, we have to go back to the beginning, to a man who wasn't just an inventor. He was a storyteller. Picture it, Menlo Park, New Jersey, the 1870s. It's not just a workshop, it's an invention factory. And at its heart is the Wizard of Menlo Park. Thomas Edison wasn't a scientist in the pure sense. He was a tinkerer, a hustler, a showman. He understood something crucial that others didn't. An invention is useless unless people believe in it. And his greatest act of storytelling was the light bulb. He didn't invent the concept. Dozens of others had tried and failed, but Edison made it work. More importantly, he made it a symbol. He made the long-lasting, practical light bulb a reality. But he knew the bulb itself was just a prop. The real magic was the system. The idea of a world bathed in safe, clean, electric light. And so, he began his grand performance. He launched his direct current, or DC, power system in New York City. It was a sensation. For the first time, city streets glowed with a steady, unwavering light. Homes were illuminated. It was a miracle. Edison was the man who tamed lightning and sold it to the public. He was a god. But there was a problem, a fatal flaw in his grand plan. Direct current is stubborn. It flows in one direction like a slow, wide river. And like a river, it can't easily go uphill. After just about a mile, the power would fade. The voltage would drop. This meant you needed a power plant every single mile for an entire city, an entire country. It was a logistical and financial nightmare. Edison's world of light was going to be a world clogged with power plants, a spiderweb of impossibly expensive copper wires. His beautiful, simple DC system was a cage. It could never power a nation. And into this moment of doubt stepped a rival, a man with a very different vision. His name was Nikola Tesla, a Serbian immigrant, a genius of a different kind. Where Edison was practical, Tesla was theoretical. Where Edison worked by trial and error, Tesla saw the solutions in his mind, in perfect, finished detail. He was elegant, strange, and he believed in a different kind of current. Alternating current, a C. While DC pushed power in one direction, AC pulsed it back and forth tens of times per second. It sounded chaotic, dangerous, but this pulsing had a miraculous property. With a simple device called a transformer, you could crank AC's voltage up to incredibly high levels and send it shooting across hundreds of miles on thin, cheap wires. Then, right before it entered your home, you could transform it back down to a safe, usable voltage. It was the key. the key to a national power grid. Tesla came to Edison full of ideas. He believed he could improve Edison's DC motors. The story goes that Edison dismissed him, scoffing at his impractical ideas. He allegedly told Tesla, "There's no future in alternating current." He saw it as a threat, not just to his technology, but to his story, to his legacy. And so Tesla left, and he found a new partner, a man who was not an inventor, but a predator. A businessman who saw in AC not just a technology, but a weapon, George Westinghouse. He was a formidable industrialist, already famous for his air brakes for trains. He was rich, ruthless, and he understood the potential of AC immediately. He bought up the patents, he hired Tesla, and he went to war. The war of the currents had begun. And this is where our story turns dark. Because Edison, the beloved wizard, was losing. The facts were against him. A C was simply better, cheaper, more efficient for sending power over long distances. He couldn't win on merit. So, he decided to win with fear. Edison launched a propaganda campaign of breathtaking cruelty. His goal, to make the public so terrified of alternating current that they would never allow it into their homes. And how do you create fear? You associate your enemy with death. Edison and his associates secretly helped design the world's first electric execution device, and they made sure it used George Westinghouse's alternating current generators. They even suggested a new, terrifying verb for the process. They proposed to Westinghouse the condemned. Westinghouse was horrified. He fought it, he tried to stop it, spending a fortune to defend the prisoners on death row, not to save them, but to save his technology's name. But he failed. And so, Thomas Edison, the man who promised to light up the world, had become the man who worked to make sure the state's ultimate punishment was powered by his rival's invention. He branded AC as the executioner's current. And it was in this atmosphere of pure, manufactured terror that an elephant named Topsy walked onto a stage on Coney Island. Edison's war was no longer just in the newspapers or the boardrooms. It was playing out with live wires and a doomed animal. He was willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to protect his story, his DC empire. But the current was turning. The shadow of his actions was growing longer. And in part 2, we will see the stunning reversal, the final outcome of this brutal war, and the true, complicated legacy of the man who gave us light, by first showing us how to harness the dark. This is the shadow, the dark side of the genius we met in part 1. Thomas Edison, the man who promised a future of light, had resorted to a public execution to win his war. He had branded his rival's system, alternating current, the current of death. He called it the executioner's current. And he was willing to do anything to make the name stick. The war of the currents was no longer a battle of ideas in a lab. It was a street fight for the soul of a nation. Edison, the established king, versus Westinghouse and Tesla, the brilliant challengers. And Edison was losing, because AC was simply better. It was more efficient. It could travel hundreds of miles, while Edison's direct current was trapped, powerless, after just one. The facts were against him. The physics were against him. So, he made his final desperate move. He went after the public's heart. And their fear. Edison and his associates secretly advised the government on a new, humane method of execution. A method that would use George Westinghouse's AC generators. They even suggested the process be called "to be Westinghoused." It was a marketing campaign built on the ultimate price, a human life. Westinghouse was horrified. He fought it, he tried to stop it, spending a fortune to defend the prisoners. Not to save them, but to save his technology's name. But he failed. And in the end, a man named William Kemmler became the first person to be executed by an electric chair powered by alternating current. The press reports were gruesome. It was not quick. It was not clean. Edison had won the battle of perception, but he was about to lose the war, Because then came the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. 1893, the White City. And it was putting its power contract up for bid. It was the prize of a lifetime, the chance to light up the future for all the world to see. Edison and his DC system bid. Westinghouse and his AC system bid. And using the brutal cutthroat tactics he was known for, Westinghouse underbid Edison and won. For the first time, millions of people saw a city of miracles glowing against the night sky. They saw the majesty, the beauty, the sheer power of AC electricity, not as an executioner's tool, but as a beacon of human progress. It was over. The war was won, not in a laboratory, but in the eyes of a wondering public. A sea became the standard. It powers our world to this day. So, where does this leave Thomas Edison? What is his true controversial legacy? His greatest invention was not the light bulb. He didn't invent it. He perfected it, made it practical. His greatest invention wasn't the phonograph, though he loved it dearly. His single most powerful invention was the system of invention itself. He created the world's first Invention factory at Menlo Park. It was a place where he applied organized science, teamwork, and relentless research and development to the process of creation. This was his real masterpiece. He didn't just invent devices, he invented a method for creating the modern world. But this genius had a cost. He was a fierce, often ruthless businessman. His rivalry with Nikola Tesla, one of the most brilliant minds of the age, was legendary. Tesla, who had once worked for him, went his own way with a vision just as grand, but a spirit less suited for commerce. Edison's story is also one of credit. He held 1,093 patents, but many of them were the work of the team in his lab. He was the conductor of an orchestra of inventors, but he often took the final bow. He was a storyteller, a showman. He knew how to sell a vision, and in doing so, he sometimes overshadowed the contributions of others. So this is the legacy, a legacy of two halves. On one hand, the undeniable light, the foundation of General Electric, the recorded sound that gave us music in our homes, the motion pictures that gave us stories on a screen. He helped build the bedrock of our technological society. On the other hand, the shadow, the brutal tactics, the willingness to use fear, and even death as a business tool. The complicated truth that our world of wonders was built not just on pure genius, but on fierce, often ugly competition. Thomas Edison was not a saint. He was not a simple hero. He was a man, a complex, flawed, brilliant, and relentless man. He gave us a world of light, but he showed us that progress has a price. He taught us that invention is not just a flash of inspiration, but a grueling, persistent march. And his story is a powerful reminder that the tools we create are never just tools. They are amplifiers of our own intentions, for better or for worse. His greatest invention, then, was not a single object. It was the very idea that we can build the future, that we can solve any problem, overcome any obstacle, through sheer human will and ingenuity. So the next time you flip a switch and a room fills with light, remember the whole story. Remember the war. Remember the shadow. And remember the complicated, controversial, undeniable genius of the man who helped teach us to never, ever stop inventing our world.